All right. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you see this, to my Western astrology students. This is going to be me breaking down a chart, an anonymous chart. This is sent by a friend. She okayed me reading this chart and allowing it to be sent to the public. And I'm also planning on doing this, releasing this to YouTube. There shouldn't be any problems there. I don't think anyone's going to mind. But yeah, this is just going to be my thought process and how I read a chart, what the things I do. Most of my students already know. If you've been a student for a minute, you know this class has only been up for 2 months, but still, already went through the basic process. Um, like before you even get into the actual chart reading, I just wanted you to take notice of the shape. This is a very rare shape as far as like where all the planets are in a chart. Notice how this side of the chart, the right side, is completely empty. You usually don't see that, and that was the very first thing I mentioned when I did her reading is where all of her planets and placements were, right? So already we have a piece of information before we even get into any aspects or placements. And this is more intuitive. You're not going to get this inside of any book. So I'll just go ahead and say what I said. I believe I said something like how since the eighth house, seventh house, third house, fourth house, very social houses, right? Very social houses. I say that since this is empty, she lets other people fill this in. So she turns into a different person depending on whoever she talks to. She's a bit of a transformer almost like a socialite, right? Where she just is mainly like how the seventh house likes to adjust to whatever person they're talking to make them more likable. But depending on the relationships, and I'm going to get into that in a second, depending on her relationships, even her hobbies, her eating habits, right? Sixth house, stomach, Virgo, right? Virgo rules over the stomach. So her eating habits, her daily routines, her hobbies, um, and how she relates to people, seventh house, eighth house, third house, the way she talks, thinks, speaks, third house, ruled by Mercury. It changes depending on person to person. Um, that's just one thing I saw, right? And she lets other people fill out. So depending on the synastry, really, or the composite, how she acts and how she relates to people changes. Now this side, the left side, is all doing with herself, right? Her possessions, that second house, her ideals, ninth house, 10th house, more career thing. But her unconscious, 12th house, 11th house, friends, first house is herself, literally. Um, this is more consistent. This is a lot more consistent. This doesn't really change person to person. So before we even get into a specific planet or placement, I just want you to see the geometry of the chart where everything is located. That can give you a lot of information. And then next, as always, we're going to count and see which is the most influential, which planet, which area of our chart is the most influential, right? Um, and there are a lot of candidates right now. I just want to give you a second to look. I want you to see the entire chart. There's Pluto. I see a bunch of Pluto aspects. There's Aquarius. There's a lot of Pisces energy in here. Actually, let's just do the count right now. And this concept is something I've already introduced into my classes. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you might be a little bit confused. Just bear with me. So let's count. Let's count Aquarius first. I think that has the most aspects, right? So she has an Aquarius Sun. That's 1 point. I think this is in Aquarius Mars. Yep, that's 2 points. We have Uranus in Aquarius. That's another 2 points right there because Uranus already rules Aquarius. So that's four by my count, right? And then Mercury in Aquarius. That's five. And then we're going to see if there's any crazy aspects to Uranus. I don't think so. Not really, because Uranus is an outer planet and Pluto is an outer planet. So Uranus sextile Pluto doesn't really matter to me personally. Um, Obviously, it matters, but not in the grand scheme of things when we're talking about how she acts and all that stuff. So, five Aquarius placements right there. We can say that Uranus is the most influential placement on her chart for now, unless the other ones have more influence. Let's count Pluto, right? So, this is Pluto right here. Pluto rules over Scorpio. There's nothing in Scorpio she has besides the MC. And I've already discussed this as well. The MC, the IC, which is this would be the IC, and the DC are all, no, actually, no, this is the DC right here. So they're all always determined by the ascendant, right? They're just fixed points on our chart. So just like how the ascendant is a fixed point on the chart, I think it's like what? It's around 15 degrees Capricorn. That means her DC is 15 degrees Cancer, and so on and so forth. Like they're fixed points on the chart. So if you're going to count the MC, you're counting the AC as well, the ascendant. Anyways, so I don't. That's the reason I don't count the MC in her chart in Scorpio. And there's nothing in the eighth house, also ruled by Pluto. So we don't need to count anything there. So now let's count the aspects. Right? She has Pluto, sextile, Mercury. That's one. Pluto trine Venus. That's two. Pluto square Sun. That's three. Pluto square Mars. That's four. So still not as influential as Uranus, but still very significant. And then lastly, the last planet I see with a bunch of influence. It's debatable between Saturn and Pisces. I mean Saturn and Neptune. Yeah, that's debatable. I say Neptune, but you can always say Saturn is impactful. But I'm just going to cover Neptune. Why? Because her Saturn is in Pisces, right? And Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and then you have all these placements in the 12th house. Right? She has Moon and Jupiter in the 12th house. The 12th house is ruled by Neptune. Also covers Pisces as well. Very similar energies. So that's what three. That's three different planets placements covered by Pisces, Neptunian energy. So we can say in order, Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune are the most influential planets in her chart. Just before we even get into her specific aspects. So what does that tell us? What does that tell us? Right, the fact that Uranus is her largest influence, you can tell that she's kind of erratic. Right, she maybe a bit chaotic, maybe a bit unpredictable. She likes to be spontaneous, right? Um, very impulsive, maybe. Very out the box, very weird. Maybe that's definitely Uranus is a weird planet in itself. Doesn't like to follow a trend, likes to stand out, um, and so on and so forth. And then the specific aspects tells you how she stands out, how she's weird, how she's chaotic, how she's erratic, right? So boom, and we can just get into that. How is she erratic? Oh, she has an erratic personality. She's very standoffish and all that other stuff, right? Or her way of thinking with Mercury in Aquarius, and so on and so forth. So Pluto, being the second most significant planet in her chart, we can see that she's very intense. She's used to dealing with pressure, um, very extreme. Pluto, intensity, extremes, um, transformation. Those are the words that cover Pluto. She's very intense and maybe very extreme. So how is she very extreme? So look at this Venus trine Pluto. Venus trine Mars. I mean, Venus square Mars. No, sorry. Excuse me. Pluto square Mars and Pluto sextile Mercury. So Mercury, Mars, Venus. These are your relationship planets right here. So she has very intense relationships. She relates to others very intensely, meaning she forms very deep bonds. She might not be as trusting as others. She's not. She doesn't like to be naive because she feels like she's been betrayed before. That's a very common theme with Scorpio Plutonic energy. They get betrayed once and they never want to get that feeling again. They do everything they can to avoid it. So this is how they become paranoid, right? Is why they can be very vengeful. Anyways, so without even getting into the specific, like you don't need to know exactly what Venus trine Pluto means. Just by seeing this chart, just like seeing how Venus rules over relationships and Pluto is intensity, intense relationships, right? You can get as deep as you want, but just understand you can read 70% of a chart just by looking at it. You don't need to know exactly what it is that what everything means. I hope I get this point across, right? Mercury is how you think, how you communicate, right? And I already covered what everything meant under in a different class. That class is available on my Patreon. What all these different signs and planets meant. Those are the boring classes. Now we can actually get into the good stuff. But yeah, Mercury covers your way of thinking, your ideas, and how you talk, how you speak, right? And then you have Pluto, which represents intensity, extremes. You can say that she's an extreme thinker. She's a deep thinker. She thinks about things very intensely. Boom. It's that simple. That simple. Boom. But now that all her relationship planets, meaning Mars, Mercury, and Venus, are touched by Pluto, you know that she has very intense, extreme relationships. You know that's what she wants. That's what she desires, right? And then like get into specific places really quick, right? Deep love. She's a lover. She's a yearner. High sex drive. Yeah, very sexual. High sex drive. There's something else I want to say, but I won't say that. And then her son, right? Just who she is as a person. She's very with the square. With the square, this is getting kind of specific now. Sun square Pluto, you get someone who's kind of standoffish, right? Someone who's very intimidating, or at least they seem that way. Or no, they are that way because it's the sun. It's not how you seem. How you seem is the ascendant. So they are this way. They are very intimidating, whether they mean it or not, right? And there's also points to some relationship issues with some kind of parent, right? Nowadays, this used to mean like if it was a Sun square Pluto, well, with the Mars and Sun, I see daddy issues, but she says she doesn't have daddy issues, so I don't want to be wrong. But it could doesn't have to mean the father usually, right? When I see this, it's some kind of father figure, some kind of older man in her life, kind of scarred her or really set her off on this path of this plutonic energy, right? But does that make sense, right? This how to just read a chart without even knowing the exact specifics and all the different meanings of Venus, Pluto, because I haven't even touched all the meanings. I've touched like 1%, right? For example, right, Venus trine Pluto is also a wealth placement, right? And that's why you would need to know every single permutation of Venus and every single permutation of Pluto and how that works in a trine, right? So I can tell her how to make money, or tell you how to make money just based on this aspect alone and the other ancillary parts of her chart as well, right? All right. Anyways, what's the last thing? What's the last thing I said? We already covered Aquarius, and no, we already covered Uranus. We already covered Pluto. Last is Pisces. Well, I'm going to cover Pisces, right? She has Saturn in Pisces. She has Moon in Pisces. She has Moon and no, she has Jupiter. Excuse me. She has Saturn in Pisces. She has Moon in the 12th house. She has Jupiter in the 12th house. So immediately, 12th house associated with Neptune. The words we associate with Neptune: dreams, subconscious, sensitivity. Um, there's a lot that goes with Pisces energy. Honestly, there's not too much, but faith is the huge one. Faith. Pisces rules over religion. Word to GG33. Right, the age of Pisces was the age of religion, the age of churches. Faith. Pisces Neptune energy is all about faith and belief, not about relying on the hard facts. So, what can we determine from these placements? Right. So, Moon is your emotional world, and 12th house is your unconscious. Right. Is ruled by Neptune, the one of dreams. So we can say, along with Jupiter in here, right? These two together, she has very powerful dreams, or she gets messages from maybe the dead. Um, it's very common that people with a lot of with the moon in eighth or in the eighth or 12th house, they can speak to the dead. They can they see ghosts, like they see dead people. Um, or it's just like high sensitivity. It doesn't even have to be something creepy like that. Like it's just high amount of intuition. Now the problem with Pisces, and this isn't something you really know unless like you just study, right? So what is the sister sign of Pisces? That is Virgo. Virgo is all about boundaries, right? Virgo loves their boundaries. And anyone who's ever met a Virgo, you know what I'm talking about. They love setting boundaries. Don't touch me. Don't touch that. Don't do that. You're doing it wrong. Virgo, all about boundaries. So Pisces being the opposite, right? Well, it's not opposite. They call it sister signs in Western astrology. So Pisces being the sister sign doesn't have as many boundaries. And anyone who's spoken to a Pisces, they're all, I love the world. I love you. I love me. Let's all love each other. That's Pisces. Whereas Virgo is like, no, get away from me. I love one person and this is my person. But everyone else, this person meets my standards. Whereas Pisces is like, you all meet my standards. My standards, I love everybody. That's the basic energy of Pisces. So what I mean, my point in saying all that is Pisces doesn't really have boundaries. And what does that mean for a moon in the 12th house? Well, emotional energy, right? So they're sucking in the emotional energy of everybody with this moon being in the 12th house. They're very sensitive to people's emotional energy, right? And a lot of times with planets in the 12th house, you get this thing where they get really tired when they're in crowds. And this is something that she confirmed. So I wasn't wrong with this. She said that, yeah, I tend to, no, I told her that she tends to suck in energy from other people very easily. And if she does it too much, she gets really tired and she needs to isolate, right? Just a good 12th house read. But yeah, this tells you that the 12th house is a very significant placement. And usually there's some unresolved stuff. Like her mind, due to some trauma, maybe, or maybe some past life stuff, or anything really. 12th houses can pull from anywhere. Um, she's restricting herself in some kind of way. I didn't really say this in the reading because I was saying a lot of other things. But usually people in the 12th house have some subconscious, unconscious form of control, and they have issues letting go and allowing themselves to be to show their full power, their full sense. And in the class, I like to show a video of where of the Empire. And if you're my student, you know what I'm talking about. Like this Empire clip where he gets this young woman to sing, and she keeps limiting herself subconsciously, and she needs someone else to help her relax and to access, her true emotional feelings, to pull her emotions out, to sing better. It's the very first scene in Empire, pretty much, and that's what I usually show, to show like the example of the 12,000 people who subconsciously control themselves and place limits and barriers on themselves. Um, you already know a lot about this one already, and we haven't even gotten to like the specifics yet. I don't know if I'm going to go super 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 deep. I don't want this to be like 3 hours long. I just wanted it to be very educational and very informative. That's my goal for this chart. So, anything else I can say? Anything else you guys might want to say, or might want to see? I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, this might be it. I might end it right here, unless there's anything else super obvious I wanted to give you guys. Because I get really, really deep into chart readings and stuff like that in my classes. And you can buy a class on my Patreon. It's Cat Prince. It's patreon.com/Cat Prince. Or you can just buy a reading, from me. And I'll link that to inside the description or the first comment of this YouTube, because this will go on YouTube. I'll probably upload it to Twitter if I can upload it to Twitter. That's why I don't want it to be too long. And then, it's going to be uploaded to the Patreon and the group chat. So it's going to be everywhere. Yeah. Anything else I really want to get into in here? Actually, you guys ask questions, and I'll probably make another video, or I'll just respond in the comments. If you guys have any questions you want to ask me about the reading, if you're confused about anything, if you see something, you're like, oh my God, that's interesting. One thing I do see that's particularly interesting, right? So she has a conjunction, right? What is a conjunction, for the people who don't know? It's basically when you have two or more planets that are right on top of each other. So she has Mercury conjunct her Uranus, right? So usually this is one, and I never take just one aspect and just run with it. I usually look at two or three different things and be like, okay, that's interesting, right? So the fact that she has Moon sextile Pluto, and then she has Mercury sextile Pluto, and then she has Mercury conjunct Uranus. Boom, there you go. It's also conjunct Neptune, but we're going to ignore that for now. It means that her ideas, her way of thinking is very powerful. She has a very unique way of thinking. She sees things from angles that other people just can't see. Usually, Uranus in a positive or really negative aspect, in any aspect, right? Whenever you get Uranus touching one of these inner planets, you get like a genius in some way, right? There's a tweet that went viral a couple years ago on astrology Twitter. It's probably forgotten by now, but someone said that Uranus to Venus is like the genius lover, for example, right? Genius thinker is definitely something I see. Combined, it's this aspect combined with the Mercury sextile Pluto, right? She's a deep thinker, genius thinker, sees things from different angles, or maybe it's the way she talks and communicates, or the way she writes, right? Because Mercury covers all that. It covers the way you talk, the way you think, the way you write, anything covering communication. That's Mercury, pretty much. Or the way she learns, the way she teaches. Boom, also under Mercury. Mercury covers a lot. It's a very underrated planet in astrology. Anything else I can give you? There's a lot to the start. There's still a lot. But I'll end the video right here. I think this is very informative. If you have any questions, please ask me. I sell readings. I sell numerology and astrology readings. $233. You just click my link and it'll send you to the place. Or you can DM me on Twitter. My Twitter is Cat Prince. It's cat_Prince33 on Twitter. And that's all my active social media. I'll be getting on Instagram and TikTok soon. I always say that, but I promise I'll get on there soon. Any questions, ask me somehow, either on Twitter or on YouTube or anywhere you find me. Other than that, thank you. And thank you to the person who gave me this chart. It's very helpful. Have a nice day. Peace.